Let's get party started.
You are live.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Call to order and acknowledge that the press and the public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from March 12th, 2025.
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of applications for the fiscal year 26 state accommodation tax funds. And Ms. Mary Alice Monroe has joined us today for her presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good
And I just want to say first, thank you for allowing me to present. I know I'm delayed. I had personal loss, and so I got a little delayed. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity today.
When we tap the mic, see if it's.
Should I get a little closer?
Okay, yeah,
There you
that's
are.
right. Thank you.
I have a gravelly voice this morning. Overall, I think you all had a chance to read and I hope I answered. We're getting better at all of our numbers because of the ATAX. We're able to get people behind the surveys and the information you need for us. I think the most exciting part of this was that 50% of the people who answered our surveys stayed on Isle of Palms. And we have all the different states. The top states, total of 24 states were represented, which is really great. And that means the word is getting out increasingly every year for people to come in for the events. South Carolina, North Carolina, of course. Georgia, Tennessee, New York, Ohio were the top. And then North Dakota and Maine also had guests. So we're getting out there. We're really great. We also have some good news to share. I can't formally announce it, but just to show you how big this is really getting, in the fall event we have Ellen Hildebrand, who is huge, coming. And then in January, fingers crossed, we're waiting for the formal yes, Jennifer Weiner, who is another huge star. So we're getting the top authors coming, which means sold out crowds. And we will continue to ask the whole island to get involved with this as much as we can. We did present this year to the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll continue to do that to try and bring more restaurants, more stores, and more housing. It doesn't have to stay on Wild Dunes. We want to get out to the entire island. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. I think I put a lot in here.
You did, very thorough.
Thank you. But any questions at all? But I do want to say thank you so much. It's because of your support that we're able to get this information and spread the word more.
Mary Alice, this was the first year you did the survey, or after the 2024
The
cycle?
second.
The second year.
But the first more serious. We did our
Okay.
best last year.
Right.
We're learning.
The fact that you had 50% of the survey respondents stay on the island
Was remarkable
was remarkable.
itself.
That caught my eye for sure.
Yeah, we did it two ways this time.
Okay.
Instead of just the handout, we did the handout plus an email, because now we're tracking all the zip codes from all the tickets, and that gives us the information we need.
Excellent. No, I thought that was good. Thanks for including that. That's helpful.
Yeah, well, that's the main concern I know for ATAX is heads and beds.
Surely. But I think it's also important that the island embrace it as well, right? I mean, the island benefits from events like this as well, and residents.
I mean, I have to say, it's really, they're coming to us now to ask if they can come, which is pretty great.
Yeah, that's excellent. Barb, any questions at all?
Nope, I'm good.
Rod?
No questions.
Mike, can you hear us okay?
Mike?
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mary Alice. Okay, Deborah Hamilton is up next with our financial statements.
Okay. For March, on the balance sheet, that's page 42 of your packet, the cash and investment balance has grown by $543,000, which is 9.8% increase from March of 2024. The fund balance has grown by $829,000, which is 16% of March of 2024. Our revenues, page 43. They're still kind of the same as of last month. The only additional revenue we received this month was the interest revenue. So total revenue is $2.1 million as of March 31st. We still have two more quarters to collect. We just ended March, so those funds should be coming in this month for the third quarter, and then, of course, the fourth quarter won't come in until about July or August, depending on when they send additional monies to us.
How are we pacing versus last year? I don't have the document in front of me right now, but in general, how are we pacing revenue-wise?
I don't have, on page 48 of your packet, it shows us where we were, so looks like that was about 1.9 last year for those two quarters. So we're pacing higher than last year. If you look at September 20.
Got it.
Yeah, okay. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. On our expenses, starting on page 44, I'm just going to give the total overall expenses for this period, the 9 months that we've captured, and that's $1,047,000 expenses to a budget of $4 million. So we do have one thing in there that I think we are going to approve this cycle, this meeting, right?
An overage.
An overage for the police department for the half cost of that public safety drone. That's on page 46, it looks like. Yes, 46, and it's marked in red. We initially budgeted $11,500, and the cost was actually $12,182. So if,
Can I ask a question again? I'm sorry,
Go for it.
I'm long distance and disconnected in a lot of ways, so I apologize. But I understand that we need police protection, and we have the best police that take care of our beaches and our guests. But is that a city council decision on something like the drone? Who makes that decision? As an ATAX committee, which that seems a little disconnected. Can you help me understand that a little bit?
Can I count? It's a city council decision, we're just the funding mechanism.
That's correct. That's why it's before this group, is because of the funding, coming through this committee. But the function of actually acquiring the drone was from city council at the recommendation of the police department. It is related to crowds, so it is related to visitation to the beach. There would not be a need for it if we didn't have the influx of visitors. So I think that's the nexus of why it got allocated to accommodations tax funding. It is specifically related to visitors.
Thank you.
And is there, so it's over by $682, is there a percentage of overage, or is it, if it's a penny over, then we have to approve it? Is that?
I think if
So
it's,
does-
yeah, I think if it's,
yeah.
if it's
Okay.
over budget, it would just come back to you all
Okay.
for a blessing.
Okay. So do we need to make a motion? This is my second meeting I've chaired, so do we need to make a motion?
It is on the, it's at six, it's item 6C on the agenda.
Okay.
We
Wait
could just
until we get
wait,
there?
we could
Okay.
wait.
Just wait till
to
we get there,
but-
okay, no problem.
Okay. So page 48 and 49 are pretty much the same as last month, because we, like I said, we haven't received any additional revenue from the state. So we can go into the budget now. The changes from what was presented last month, we increased the sponsorship by the additional $25,000 that was requested from the committee. So that went up to $75,000. And then that was the only increase for FY '26. We did change FY '25 forecast to remove a waterway project from FY '25 that's going to be deferred to FY '26. So that actually, that those funds will not be spent this year, this fiscal year. And there was revenue as well as expenses budgeted for this year, but it will not take place. The FY '26 budget loss is $406,000. This is 13% higher than FY '25 budget. That's all I have for the budget, unless you have any questions.
One question, going back maybe to the year-to-date numbers, there's a fairly significant bucket in here, $1.1 million of unexpended projects and miscellaneous. I assume that gets tied out at some point before the end of the fiscal year?
Yes, sir. Those are the positions that are transferred. That's the payroll that is transferred, and it normally happens in June.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So there's really, we won't have the opportunity to track that. We'll just kind of get that when the year's wrapped up, so to speak.
Right. I can do it earlier. It normally just takes place at the last, but it's just a transfer, so I can do it anytime.
Yeah. No,
But
that's
we normally do it in June, but I can do it anytime.
But those are all, just to kind of reiterate what you said, I think Douglas, what you said a minute ago, is those are all those things, that additional firefighters, the paramedics, all those things are specifically tied to we'll call it the surge of additional people. So that the firefighters, the paramedics, the police officers, all those different ones are properly allocated through the city's funds for normal population, and these are for additional.
That's correct.
Additional resources. Okay,
That's correct.
Cover the demand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're very conservative in that regard. I
Sure.
mean, we talk all the time about what the city would look like if it was only 4,400 people, and a lot of what we do, we wouldn't have, obviously. So we kind of look at everything in addition to that being subject to the visitors that come. I mean, they drive the way the city is built, and that this is part of covering that additional expense.
Okay. I guess I have one more question. It probably doesn't fall into that. I don't mean to be asking all the questions. You guys feel free to speak up. But I know that there was, I was looking through some of the documents, and I know there was talk of sidewalk improvements on Ocean Boulevard. I know the waterway thing got pushed out. You just said that, Deborah. But who would where do those things actually, what's the genesis of sidewalk improvements or beautification projects or things along those lines that we might, as a committee, consider having beautiful flower planters on Ocean Boulevard and downtown as an example? What was the genesis of those projects? And the police force, obviously, the chief tells us what he needs to deal with crowds and all those things. But if there are specific beautification type projects, what's the nexus of those?
So, a lot of those projects are driven by county CTC funds. We request funding for things like sidewalk improvements. They're really tied to the additional penny sales tax that the county collects. So not to say that, and I don't really think there is a connection that we have made, but there probably could be a connection made with funding kind of beautification projects, kind of special projects with ATAX money. Probably something we could look at, we could figure out how to do that, but historically, those have really been tied to transportation funds, grants, different programs
Okay.
tied to transportation and trying to drive kind of multimodal form, getting people out of cars and onto sidewalks.
So probably more infrastructure driven than like just beautification.
That's
The
correct.
curb appeal is, the county doesn't care about that, but
That's-
we would care about it as somebody who's trying to put heads in beds. I got
That's
it right
correct.
that time, just to make sure. On post.
That's correct.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah, Mike?
Mark, I think you nailed, I love that point you brought up. As a resident, and I can't wait to get down there tomorrow night, I have heard comments about the sidewalks on Waterway and wheelchair access and bike riding on Palm in particular from visitors. I think that the ATAX committee should consider and explore how we could do things like that to make the trips and visits more memorable and our island even more beautiful is some renters, I have done some short-term rentals, I think 5 or 6 weeks for this year. There's been some comments to me, and I've just shared this with the group, it's anecdotal, there's no analysis, and you could do surveys or whatever, but that there were comments that while the island is still beautiful and they love the beaches, it's a little tired, and they related it to an old Outback Steakhouse. It was great in its day, and we don't want to take this for granted. So whatever we've got to do, I go around trying to pick up trash, but whatever we can do to make the whole island beautiful, and those access roads and sidewalks and all those things, those are things that guests use a lot, and I want them to be world class. And however that mechanism for funding we get into consideration set, I would like to explore that, and I don't know the way we need to do it in a committee type format, but Doug, please let me know. I would love to be part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my standpoint, if this group were to identify a project or a need specifically, we think this would be a great opportunity, and we think it would be a great benefit to the visitors, and we could certainly kind of run that down in terms of what it would cost, how it could be funded, and then, in a perfect world, that would be built into the budget that we're doing now for '26.
Right.
And we kind of have the runway to be able to plan it, get it into the budget, then it would happen in fiscal year '27. So, I mean, that could be a kind of priority or goal of this group to identify, kind of work through projects like that. I think it would be a great use of this group.
Is there any more thoughts of more wooden access paths? We have a couple of wonderful new walkways. Is the city?
The beach access
Right.
paths. Yeah, so we have been very busy with building those, that for whatever reason, that has been a very popular project that people that outside agencies have enjoyed funding. So I think we've now built 5 in the last 2 years that are really kind of first-rate Cadillac beach accesses. 3 have now been funded by the Greenbelt Committee of Charleston County, and 2 have been built through the state delegation just putting money into the budget to construct those. So those seem to be popular for, I think it's an easy thing to latch on to, that this is the state or a group contributing to the visitors and giving them better access to the beach.
Well, it's significant because some of our paths are so flooded, they'll be flooded for a week after a rain event, not even a big storm. And obviously, walking in knee-deep water doesn't thrill the tourist, doesn't
Right.
thrill the residents.
Right, and those have been, the ones that had water after significant rain events were kind of the first priority. We now have them 52nd, 46th, 36th, 34th, and 27th. So they're got a lot of nice new ones kind of spaced out in the upper end of the island between 26th and 52nd. So I would expect that we could, kind of continue that down into the rest of the island. But if you have ones that are low and challenging to access, those have been kind of the top priority. We do have the challenge on this end with the escarpment, that you can kind of only go so far before you get to a very dynamic shoreline here recently. So that's been a challenge on this end, but we could certainly do something back of that with those funds.
Right.
Do we need a separate committee for, if we are looking for improvements, and again, the more spectacular an area is, the more it draws tourists. Just like azalea festivals, the more beautiful a place is, the more it draws tourism. So I would like to have it considered that the ATAX committee, with the tourism money, be able to subsidize a total beautification of Isle of Palms. it seems like Wild Dunes has done a good job in their area. We need to do it throughout the island.
That would be a large project to digest, and I would say that that's an excellent kind of long-range goal, and I think the way to get there is to kind of piece by piece identify a project, get that funded, and I think that this committee could certainly do that.
And the brothers said amen. I love it.
I know years ago, we sort of did a bit of the beautification thing through which landscape company we employed, right? We gave them more things
Right.
they had to do.
That's correct.
Because flower plantings and
Yeah, the
whatever.
landscaping has definitely kind of gone from just weed whacking the edge of the roads to flowers and beautification and.
So that would be a way to handle the front beach a bit.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to look back, what the front beach looks like now with the restrooms and that compared to what it
Yeah.
looked like 12 years ago is stunning.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent project for the group to think on, and, we could just kind of thinking out loud, I mean, the group could definitely engage a landscape architect to kind of inventory areas of the front beach would seem to be an easy first step to come up with plans. Everything we will do kind of is a long lead time again. It would start with design, but I think that would be a excellent project.
I think it's helpful to know where it comes from, right? So
Yeah.
we can start it out, but it would
Yeah.
be for the next budget cycle.
That's correct.
And it may just be, I hate to use the word task force, but it could be that we want to pull together some different stakeholders in the community. Maybe it's the chamber, maybe it's, environmental, to make sure we're thinking about more sustainable options and things like that. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like the group is very much kind of unified around that idea and that project, and that, it's kind of that's the beginning step,
Okay.
and then
Right.
next steps would be design and working through funding and all that.
We have a resident on Palm Boulevard that is probably the most recognized artist of landscape design. He has done Charleston. He is probably the best out there as far as what it takes to make an area look inviting. As Robert Chestnut on Palm Boulevard. And he did Charleston. He has totally remade Charleston into one of the most beautiful places you can go. And so he's only one name. He doesn't have a big service company or whatever, but he is an artist. And if you want something beautiful, yeah,
He's your guy.
He's your guy. He is your guy. And so Charleston Magazine has articles on him quite frequently of what he's done for Charleston. And he's a resident on Palm Boulevard. The little pink house as you go toward Wild Dunes. It's oceanfront, the little pink house about midway down.
With a new berm out front that channels the water from the road into the inlets there. You can see it pretty obviously when you go down the road. He had water getting into his yard, which he still has, so we know his property very well.
What block's he?
I think he's somewhere between 36 and 38.
Okay.
Okay, Nicole, keep me straight here. We're to item 6B.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for our friends at CVB to be able to present their current draft budget for fiscal year 2026. So I'm not sure who's going to lead that, Lori. Who's going to lead the presentation?
We have a whole team.
Oh, wow, okay, all right, the whole dog and pony show. Let's do it.
We're going to get started with Catherine. You ready for us?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, great.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good to see everybody today. What a gorgeous day to be back on the island. So as
as Chairman mentioned, we are ready to show y'all our thoughts and where we want to take the island in the new year. And I just want to share, too, that appreciate Park and the city staff spending some time with our team and sharing some of your thoughts and desires for the new year. And we're really happy to always get that feedback. And I think over the past few years, we've done a really good job of incorporating the feedback from the staff and from this group as well. And just to reiterate, too, we're just speaking to the 2% state ATAX, and as that relates to the requirements from Turk. So that's how we'll walk through this today for anyone that might not remember us in the past, but we hope to be memorable. And we've certainly incorporated the idea of year-round approach with a big emphasis on the off-season, what we consider, after speaking with y'all, pretty much September through March before spring break gets kicking off. And one of those things that we took back from y'all was the video that we had brought before was maybe not quite as family focused as y'all had preferred. So we went back, we worked with our team at Vive, and here's just a sample of what we've been running this year. Thanks, Amy. And you can see that vanity URL as we head in to just remind y'all about the two ways that y'all are represented within our suite of websites. The first one is the Isle of Palms page on our main site, explorecharleston.com. And then the second way is the Isle of Palms whole section on charlestonareabeaches.com. So those are promotions that are leading to both of those sites when we promote the island. And then continuing on with our social media and Google campaigns. So those incorporate not only static pictures, but also the videos that we just showed you. And then our off-season campaigns, we tend not to really talk about these as much as we could, but certainly in our holiday promotions, that's a great example of how we highlight that our islands, and especially Isle of Palms, is a great place to be any time of year. I mean, look at today, great example. And even, again, in our print, you can see Wild Dunes has a wonderful package up here, but we always are showing that island imagery year-round. Something new that we did this year, and when we come back in November, we'll have a lot more data for you, but I just wanted to whet your appetites with a few things. And one of those is through our partnership with Sinclair Media. We've talked to y'all for the past several years about our over-the-top and streaming campaigns. They brought us something new this year, and it was a segmentation process, and we specifically targeted beach travelers, and what we were able to do was through Sinclair, and just a reminder that Sinclair is the largest buyer of over-the-top and streaming media in North America. So we get a lot with them, including they're the only international company that has access to Canadian streaming. So we're very fortunate because, as y'all know, we have that nonstop flight to Toronto. So really good for us to get after those visitors as well. But through this, we were able to go out, find those beach travelers that were interested. It's very hyper-targeted. I wish I was smart enough to know how algorithms and all these things work in the background. But as you can see, we ran this campaign from September to January. We were able to reach over 635,000 households. And again, those are those visitors that y'all have asked us for, the ones that want to come to a beach, that have a higher household income, that are interested in our area. So getting in front of the right people, whereas with the traditional broadcast, you never know who you're going to get, and you also never know if they get up to check a boiling pot of water. But here we see we have a 98% video completion rate. And then our favorite, the VRBO campaign, we continue to only promote Isle of Palms units that are listed on VRBO. This ran in the off-season, October through March. We think it performed pretty well. If you see the numbers in green, that is revenue that came straight to those Isle of Palms unit owners. Y'all are receiving the tax benefit from those lodging bookings that are made, and we really want to focus putting more emphasis on that for the new year.
How do you, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
Catherine. How do you track that? So those are, you're able to see that they got the VRBO campaign, they click through,
Yes.
made a booking with VRBO,
Yes.
and then you know the revenue from the VRBO booking. So there's
Yes,
a
we
linear
do.
relationship there.
It is, and because VRBO is owned by Expedia, very large company, they have the ability to provide this data back to us. And when we come back in November, we're going to ask them for an even deeper dive to show you exactly where this data comes from. But third year in a row, we feel really good with what they're able to produce, and certainly answering the call of showing off more of the.
Have you seen an upward trend in that? So it was 5 million this go around. Have you seen an upward trend in those
Yes,
3 years?
and I do not remember the number from last year, but we can bring that in November.
I'm just curious. I mean, it's not.
That's a very worthwhile question,
Okay.
but again, the months reflect what y'all have tasked us with.
Excellent.
We do still believe in the power of print, but have certainly diversified from, I think, the first time I presented to y'all 4 years ago, where we had a lot of print we were doing, but where we are focusing on our islands is still the South Carolina Vacation Guide with a separate islands campaign in there, as well as Coastal Living. Great audience for this market. And then I did not want to miss a chance to show y'all, if you haven't seen our 2025 golf guide cover that does feature Wild Dunes Resort, and I think our lovely Vanna White has some copies of that for y'all too. And then after meeting with the staff, we look forward to continuing to work with your team on some other new projects. One of those is to work with the outside agency to create that new brand that I know the city staff wants. We're going to dive into that walkability study and actually work with the COG this year. And then we are really happy to continue to sponsor the IOP Thrives campaign. Pretty sure all y'all had a chance to take part in that with David McNair, and we will continue to provide that back to the city.
I'm going to interrupt you again, Catherine.
Yes.
I hate to slow your roll.
No,
but,
I don't mind.
But back to that slide.
Yes.
Is that, what we were just talking about earlier with the beautification, do you guys see any common threads there in terms of from a marketing perspective, right? I mean, things that we should be considering, not to get into minutia, but is there a place for CVB at the table to think about, okay, well, if we're going to spend money on the area right here when you come off the connector, is that good or bad, or should we be more focused, are there more strategic things that CVB might be able to just help us think through?
I think we would have to dive in more with David, but 100%, I don't know any reason we wouldn't want to be a part of that.
Okay.
And then as those results come along and the beautification continues to happen, that's where we would also work with staff on future video and photography and things like that to continue to show off the island.
Thank you.
And then, before you go, we had a wrap-up meeting, Douglas, when was that? A couple of months ago, with the team from ABC
Yep.
News 4. And it gets bigger and better every year, and we love the idea that we can provide this back to y'all, sponsor this program, and really help people get out to the beaches in a safe, convenient manner. And we look forward to that kicking off again really soon, I think in
Yep.
the next week or two.
Yep.
And then that's it for me. Happy to take questions afterwards, but I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Director of Sales, Amy Calhoun, who has some great things to share with y'all as well.
Hello. Thank you guys for having me today. I am the new girl on the block, so to speak, so I'm new to this committee, but I've been in the group segment in Charleston for the past, 27 years or so. I hate to say that it's been that long, but I think it has. But with Park's new favorite saying, heads in beds, that's kind of one of our big roles at Explore Charleston, and particularly in the group market. So I am here to tell you why group business is good business. But first, I want to acknowledge the elephant in the room. You can't talk about group business on Isle of Palms without talking about Wild Dunes, because they have the largest meeting space. So some of this is, related to them. But why you want group business, why group is good, 90% of it is fly-in business. Business travelers come here and they're on their company dime. So what are they doing? They're going out, they're entertaining their clients, they're, taking them on kayak tours, they're definitely taking them to restaurants. Hopefully they're headed out to, catch a music at the dinghy or something. Also, particularly in an economy like we're currently facing, group business is contracted business. So it is not going to be as subjected to turns in the economy as a leisure traveler. Particularly when we're talking about our association market, lots of associations are required to have at least one meeting a year per their bylaws. So that means that, if we're contracting it now for 2027 or 2028, even if something goes wrong, they're not getting out of that contract without paying a big cancellation. So that's good news for you guys. Also means that we're able to plan a little bit. So we're able to direct that group business into off seasons, slower time periods where you may, welcome the visitor a little bit more. You may want more of them on the island. And also it allows you to plan. So if you know that you've got a group of 1,500 people coming and that information is being communicated to our restaurants and to our bars and stuff like that, then they can plan their staffing. So that is one of the reasons that I think group business is good business. So from the group sales department, Kat put me up there on the slide, great.
You're our star.
Last year, and this is Isle of Palm specific, so we can only look backwards, right? Because we don't have these numbers for 25 yet, we can't look forward, so we're looking backwards. In the calendar year 2024, we sourced 495 leads, about 187,000 potential room nights, and just under 159 million estimated in economic impact. And that, again, is to the Isle of Palms. Also looking backwards by the numbers, so as a CVB, we hosted 6 FAM tours. That is a familiarization tour, so that's when we have people coming in, like, say, Helms Briscoe, which is a third-party planner, or Jim's Hospitality, or Ike has a couple of his luxury people that come in, and we have them in a smaller group for usually a day and a half, 2 days, and really just show them all that we have to offer in the city. We attended 39 trade shows where we talk about Isle of Palms and we talk about Wild Dunes. Of those trade shows, 17 were targeted at the luxury market. And that is significant because, one, we know, or our research tells us, that our high-end luxury traveler is going to travel regardless of what the economy does. So we want to target those people to come in and bring that higher yield business. And then an additional 14 shows target full service hotels. So both of those were hitting, of 39, you've got 31 that particularly target Wild Dunes and what you have to offer here on the island. And then we had 83 site visits. So that's when a meeting planner comes to town. They say, hey, we want to look at X, Y, and Z hotel. Take us out, show us around. We're going to have 3 or 4 off-premise things. Where can you go? I had the Association of Meat Processors come. They stayed at the convention center, but they booked a full day at the Citadel Beach House to just have a family day out there. They were from the Midwest. They don't get to the beach often, so they wanted to offer that to their attendees. And so, in conclusion, meetings mean business, and it means business for your entire community. And I think that is why group is good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You got one more.
I got one more?
Yes, sorry,
Oh,
travel
man.
advisory.
Oh, I forgot.
That's the good one.
Yeah, so I'm the group girl. Ike is the leisure guy. In our sales department, we also target leisure, and we target these through a couple of ways. One is our relationship with Signature Travel Network, and this is a It's an agency that you can be a part of, you can join, you can be preferred, you can not be preferred. They do book hotels that are not preferred. The exciting thing about Signature is that the growth year over year from 23 to 24 was 69%. So that's pretty significant, and that impacted not only Wild Dunes, but it also impacted the Palms and the Seaside End. And we can tell that it's tracked, so we see what is booked there. And then Amadeus is a little bit of a marketing campaign, so we advertise on this particular booking engine, and then when they click through to book at one of your properties, we can track that and see it. So that growth was 23%. So both showing very positive performance in 24 from 23. Now am I done?
Well, good morning. Always good to be back on the island. What a beautiful day. Can we do the next meeting outside? It's my pleasure to kind of wrap things up. Kat and Amy have done a great job of talking about our marketing and advertising and the significance of group sales. There are just a few final components I want to touch on. And one of those is a very important one, and that is our shared staff member. Chandra is not able to be with us today. She had a scheduling conflict, but I think all of you all know her. She's the public relations and tourism coordinator for the island. That's a relationship that's gone back a couple fiscal years now and has really served us both really well. And it's been a successful collaboration. It's really an important connection to, she does spend time in our office. Most of her time is spent here for obvious reasons, but that's an important communication point and a connection, if you will, to our marketing, our media relations, and our other special projects that are going on throughout the year. That's probably a good time for me to also pause and make sure we do just introduce a couple of people that won't necessarily be speaking today as part of our formal presentation. You know Laurie, our chief of staff. Ike High is a member of our sales group sales team as well. And Amy alluded to this. Ike is focused in on leisure sales and the travel advisor, which is we talked about this a little bit, Park and Douglas, at our meeting last month. Incredibly important part of the industry that some people have wondered, hey, is the travel agent kind of a thing of the past? Tons of research that I can go into about why that's not the case, and also why it's so important to stay in front of that very important audience. I mentioned Chandra and our media relations connection. Certainly our earned media work that our media team within Explore Charleston does on behalf of the region and the island is going to be an integral part of all of our FY26 efforts. Really what that allows is during, as we're building these relationships, marketing and media do go hand in hand. And as we're able to leverage some of those partnerships and gain additional attention to the island, some regional coverage then opens the door, such as with Southern Living, to get features that are island specific. Sometimes it's integrated within a bigger feature that's regional. Sometimes it might be IOP specific. But the key is you have a team that is vetting pitches. We're very blessed to get those routinely, and they're vetting those all the time, and they're able to keep the island in front of various audiences in the national and even international landscape. And visitor services, so that would be the final piece to touch on. That is something that we have actually shifted in our allocation. You'll see on the budget. So it's less this year from an allocation standpoint. It's important work that we will continue to do. Nothing changes in that regard. And that visitor services team is including folks that are taking chats, taking calls, connecting in times of crisis to help communicate important information. And Kat and I were laughing about the old school phone here. But I think it's sort of, it's appropriate, I told Kat, because it's old school how we do this. They do answer the phone. They are on the other end of the computer. It is not a bot. It is not an automated system. You call that number, you get someone that's a part of the community and can speak, firsthand about our market. So we're proud to continue that very much personal connection with visitors who reach out that way. And this one is our kind of concluding slide. I'll admit, Kat and I were laughing, it's also not the prettiest, okay? It may not be the most attractive of everything. But it's really important because, through this budget, we've discussed all these efforts plus others that we'll be working on in 26. All of those are assigned into one of the 6 Turk prescribed categories. And so even though this may not be the flashiest slide, it's really important for us to end on this document since it's the one that the group is reviewing and council ultimately has to act on from a budgetary standpoint in order for us to, of course, maintain compliance and keep consistent with the Turk guidelines that were updated just a few years ago. So with that, I'll just open the floor for any questions and remind you that, our work we recognize does have real-time impacts on the community, drives a lot of important revenue. And we look forward to working with you all in the future to enrich visitor experiences, to enhance livability as well through things like the tourism management plan, IOP Thrives, and as you all talked about with the character and the charm of the island, making sure we can do what we can to help complement your efforts there. Yes, ma'am.
Rebecca, get close to the mic.
Did I?
I have heard everything about bringing tourism into Isle of Palms from CVB, but I don't hear what you have planned for the off-season. Park said it well one day that he drove from his house to Harris Teeter or whatever, came back, no one was here.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a lot of tourism during the summer. The hard part is, what are you going to do to draw tourism here in the off-season?
It's a great question, and we apologize if some of what we touched on didn't, reassure you enough in terms of our off-season efforts, because in fact, a lot of our marketing campaigns, the digital campaigns, the OTT is pushed harder. In other words, we're putting more dollars behind it in those off-season periods. The group component that we spoke about, when they're promoting the island, they're able to hopefully encourage groups to look during the shoulder seasons, if you will. So there is very much within that work, when you get into the details of it, that is something we're always mindful of, is pushing more towards the off-season.
Well, what is your idea of what we can do as a city to make the draw in the winter or off-season more inviting? It's
Turn the thermostat to 70 outside.
I don't have that much of a nature.
Yeah.
But this is a two-way street.
It is.
I mean, you can only market what you have.
Right.
What do we need to do to make this more inviting
Sure.
in the off-season?
That's a great question. I don't know if we we would love to sit down and talk about ideas. I would say one thing, for example, we could see where there might be opportunities on, and looking to the staff as well. We're putting a lot more and gaining a lot more traction around our holidays campaign. And if there are ways we can encourage activities on the island that complement the work we're doing to make this region a destination that we know it can be, if you will, an iconic destination, candidly, during the holiday season, that would be one example. Yeah, please.
Hey, y'all. Now you have a fourth speaker up here. May I ask, and Deborah knows, this is so early in our budget process. Yeah, our board doesn't even get our budget for another it's the middle of April. Our board doesn't even approve our budget until the end of May. So just know that it is so early for us.
Sure.
So poor Deborah didn't get this from us until after lunch yesterday. So I don't know what you all received from us. Did you?
It didn't, the packet went out before we got that from you guys. So this is the first time the group has seen it.
Okay.
I
so
got it
you don't
yesterday, but
have
I
the
didn't want to.
You don't have the detail from us. Okay, all right.
I think I probably have whatever you guys sent yesterday.
Yeah, the staff and park would be the only ones that have it at this point, but we will provide it.
Okay. All right, so Rebecca, I
Immediately.
think if you had gotten the materials that I sent at the last minute yesterday, you'd see that there's an off-season campaign for about $1.5 million addressed in the detailed packet here. And that's really just a start. That addresses our destination-wide campaign. Kat and I were just talking yesterday afternoon that we think we need to put a campaign together that is an island-specific campaign. So that's something that we'd love to sit down with Park and discuss. So I love that you're going in that direction because we're going there already. So anyway, I think that's something that we need to sit down and
right.
discuss.
I mean, I just want to reiterate, I could go back, that
The beach segmentation campaign on streaming, so the TV campaign runs, so see, that ran September to January. I mean, we don't run anything in the summer specific to y'all knowing when your need time is. And same with VRBO, ran October to March. So those are two of our largest campaigns to date that have generated not only booked revenue, but also a great amount of interest for the island, and just two ways that we have been focused on that off-season. And as Laurie said, we only want to continue that because dispersing our visitors throughout the right times of the year is a common goal for us. And I mean, I think most everybody knows, my family has a house out here too, so I like to be able to get to the grocery store as well. And we will continue to work on that and focus our efforts on those times. Does that help with some specific examples of how we do that?
Yes.
Okay, and same with our paid social and paid Google. You know, we turn them on and turn them off. So for Isle of Palms, we turn them on in those off seasons that complement these other efforts.
And for downtown, we do kind of the exact opposite. So we're turning it on for downtown for the summer when we're trying to drive people there. We turn it off for you guys.
Yeah, we know you don't need business in the summer.
I think another thing
Except
is,
your restaurants would like.
you know, the festival that Ms. Monroe talked about earlier today, and I'm not going to say it right, Casabo Run that they're talking about for the spring. I think both of those, putting some events like that here is going to bring a draw.
Yeah.
You know, and definitely in both of those, you know, are in times when it's more favorable for you guys to have people out here.
I like special activations. I mean, give people a reason to come. You know, what's going on outside of the normal everyday life.
Yes.
You know, I hear a lot from, as they mentioned, I work a lot with travel agents, travel advisors. A lot of their clients come from the Northeast and Midwest. In the wintertime, they want to be away from the cold weather, but they want to still feel a Christmas festive.
Mm-hmm.
So make the island feel very Christmassy, festive. You know, they want to be in the warm weather, but they will still want to feel Christmas. So, you know, that gives people a reason to come to Charleston area, is feeling that warm, you know, the warmer weather than they have, but still feeling that Christmas very festive season.
Would that be part of CVB, or would that be part of the local chamber?
If y'all create it, we will sell it. That's sort of our role. Our role
Yeah.
is to promote it and sell it.
So it's events like the tree lighting festival, but on a larger scale, is this what we're talking about here?
I think some of it is things, like, for example, you're already part of our Spread the Joy campaign. We have a sign that comes out to the island. You're part of our map that is, and as that grows, maintaining connection so that we're cross-promoting the events that might already be happening, but also as we're looking for new things to introduce, maybe we need 2 signs out here. Maybe we, you know, complement your work with something else we're considering. Amy hit on a great point, though, and I want to come back to that. You might hear that downtown is slower in the summer. Please don't, and we're cranking things up from a marketing standpoint. Doesn't mean we're doing that here. We very much are mindful of those shoulder seasons.
I'm going to ask a more macro question, because when we met a month ago, the world was a lot different than it is now in terms of economic forecasts. And, we talked about that, Douglas, with, being conservative, and we're always conservative with the numbers. And I think, Deborah, I saw we're like budgeting for 98% of 2024 fiscal year, 2024 fiscal year, is that right? I think for the guidance of these guys from the city's perspective in terms of how we're going to get people out of the island, are you guys hearing or feeling anything about how the macroeconomic situation in the U.S., to try to keep it vanilla, how that's going to affect things, right? Because I know there's always been talk about the last minute people booking with the rental properties and some of those things. Have y'all seen anything change yet in terms of, like the big front beach houses that they have to sign up for a year in advance? Are people backing out of things like that? Or are there any things that y'all are seeing at this early stage that gives you concern about our number?
Two parts to a short answer. None of us have the good crystal ball to understand kind of how the headwinds that are created by some of the federal policy are going to impact things, because it is so rapidly evolving. But certainly we acknowledge that there are several variables that could be impacted, and that's groups, that's government, travel, corporate, and then of course the leisure side. To this point, we haven't seen a big impact. Largely, that's because we don't have as much international exposure. If we were talking to folks in border states, certainly larger markets, the New Yorks of the world, you would hear a different story. But we, to this point, have not heard a lot. There have been anecdotal, and so it is impacting a few people, but not a lot so far. I wish I could say we know what the future is, but I promise you we're looking at this weekly to see if we're picking up on anything. From a just pure, as you know, we can't look at hotels specific to the island because there's just not enough for them to blind the data for us. But what we can look at is the vacation rental side, and what we're seeing is things are continuing to hold pretty steady, and they just ran for us the next 6 months, and we're actually on par from an occupancy standpoint with where we were last year, and rate continues to be up a little bit over last year. That's on average. So not a lot of growth, but certainly still holding the line at this point.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Kat. Yeah.
No, that's fumble. And I just want to add too, that is how we got so heavy into the travel advisor push, was through the downturn at COVID. And that is a lot of times where Americans went back to a travel advisor, called them and said, hey, I can't go to Europe, but I need to go somewhere else. And our region became the perfect getaway for so many people across the country. And Ike's work in attending these one-on-one appointment shows with these luxury advisors who have these wonderful relationships now that we're 5 years post out of the pandemic, call their travel advisors regularly and say, where can I go? I might not be doing a 10-day European vacation, but I certainly wanted to go somewhere for a week, a long weekend. They call their advisor. Guess what? Their advisor calls Ike, and he works them through and is able to sell exactly what they're getting. So that travel advisor, and as Amy talked about, we're on Amadeus, which is the largest global distribution system for travel advisors. We're a member of Signature and some other ones that have the most eyes that we can get from these folks that people are really gone back to looking to. So I think that's going to be key again.
I would dovetail that with one more kind of question statement. I'm in the logistics business, and so we're seeing a lot of airlines are starting to cancel flights into the U.S. because of the difficulty of getting through customs and everything. So do you guys track international travel, like inbound into the Charleston area and potentially even in the Isle of Palms? And is it meaningful enough? Is it a large enough percentage of the activity that we should be like, oh gosh, people can't fly in anymore, or they aren't flying in anymore?
Sure. It's not a huge percentage. Before the pandemic, we were getting closer to almost 10% of our total visitor volume was from international, or was international, excuse me. That obviously changed considerably with the pandemic. We've grown back, but I would say on average, and we can't, there's no surefire way to tell this, but it's about 5%, give or take. Certainly Canada is the largest. It has been for years and years and years. So the exposure there would be the greatest. Good news from an airline standpoint, Air Canada is continuing to operate the flight into Charleston and out of Charleston. They have not done that with all of their markets over the last several months. So that's a positive sign. But we unfortunately can't get to the micro level as far as number of international visitors on the island. There's just not a good way to capture that, not even a surefire way on to the region. But between a lot of different data sources, we can provide some estimates.
Right.
I would say, if I may just come back one quick thing to one of the things that is great for our market when we're seeing economic situations like we are facing now. The higher yield, the more affluent traveler does tend to continue traveling. And our market, this island, is positioned as such that, with the larger homes, just like some of our luxury products in the hotels, Wild Dunes is categorized as a luxury hotel. Those travelers, all surveys so far, continue to indicate they're traveling. With that discretionary spend, people are prioritizing travel. They're saying they're going to cut back on some other things, some goods and other items, but travel has continued to rank high, and we like that as one of the pros as we work against some of the headwinds.
Great, thank you. Any other? You guys?
Thank you.
Mike? You awake?
Yeah, I did cheat. Sorry, I had an email I had to deal with, so sorry about that.
Any questions?
Very good. I loved it. And thank y'all for letting me participate today, and appreciate what the folks in Charleston are doing, and look forward to seeing the shoulder opportunities. I think there's some ideas I have around the sports industry that I would like to share at the appropriate time.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mike.
Y'all have a great one. Thank you. Get out on the
Wait, Mike, we got to vote before you go. We've got, so the next item on the agenda, the next item on the agenda is for that overage that Deborah alluded to earlier.
And there is actually another overage that I didn't highlight earlier. It's under our fire department debt service. It's a couple of cents, so it's making it $1, but it's still over, and we need to vote on
She's
that as
testing me.
well.
You asked if it was $1 over, I said yes, she said, okay then. Here's that $1.
Can we move to do both of them at the same time, or do we have to address them
Yeah,
individually?
both together is fine.
Deborah, could you just speak for the record specifically what we're voting on, just so I can grab that later?
Yes, we're voting on the overage for the police department, half of the cost for the public safety drone. The budget was $11,500. The actual expenditure is $12,182. And the second item is the fire department debt service on the ladder truck, which is financed through Truist. That debt service was budgeted at $91,914, and the actual expenditure is, with rounding, is $91,915. So it's probably a couple of cents, but it's rounding up to $1.
I move we vote on these two overage.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So approved. Okay, the next item is miscellaneous.
Well,
I go a lot of different directions.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to just say, for the benefit of the group, we do need to, and I would propose that you do this at your May 14th meeting if you are agreeable, but we do need to take action on the grants. You will need to make a recommendation. You've now heard all of the requests specifically. So we need to do that, and then we have these two budget considerations, the CVB budget and the cities. state accommodation funds budget that we'll want a recommendation for. So kind of the information you heard from today and at the last meeting, still need recommendations on each of those. So if you all are agreeable, we would put that on your May agendas.
100%, yeah.
First reading, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So our next meeting is on Wednesday, May the 14th at 10 a.m. I think that's about it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?